9 shocking car fails you'll never believe made it to production. Despite rigorous testing, incredible failures on cars are sometimes missed by manufacturers, proving that their strategies were flawed from the get-go. Speaking of strategy, it's time for this week's shout out to our video sponsor Vikings War of Clans, which is an awesome and massively addictive mobile game to test your strategy skills and do battle with other players online in rival clans around the world. For CT viewers, Vikings, one of the top strategy games in the App Store, is giving away 200 gold, so download the game now using the link in the description below. Now, let's get back to it. Suzuki Celerio brake failure. Imagine that you're traveling at 80 miles an hour. You brake firmly, at which point the brakes do absolutely nothing. Holy we're all gonna die! This is what happened to an Autocar journalist as the publication uncovered a serious issue with a Suzuki Celerio in 2015. According to the publication's report, during a full-force braking test at 80, the brake pedal became stuck in the fully depressed position and had absolutely no effect on the car's speed. Unsurprisingly, Suzuki quickly recalled the car. Victims of the elk test. Teknikens Värld is a Swedish automotive magazine most famous for its elk test. The test simulates quickly avoiding an obstacle in the road, and the transfer and momentum can be enough to unsettle high-sided cars. So, manufacturers implement systems that counteract the pendulum effect and keep the car stable. But these fail-safes don't always work. Back in 1997, the then-new Mercedes A-Class was overturned during a test, while the Jeep Grand Cherokee popped multiple tires in 2012. Ford Pinto's exploding fuel tank. The Ford Pinto was meant to be a rival to the cheap and cheerful Japanese cars that were becoming popular in the 60s. During testing, engineers discovered that if the car was hit from behind, even at low speeds, the rear-mounted petrol tank had a tendency to break apart and dump fuel on the road. That made it a huge fire risk, but unbelievably, Ford decided it would cost more to fix the issue than it would to pay the victims, so it left the issue in place. Ford's knowledge of the problem came to light in 1977, and a year later, all 1971 to 76 Pintos were recalled. GM's faulty ignition switches. In 2014, GM was forced to issue a number of recalls that affected up to 28 million cars worldwide due to faulty ignition switches. The problem meant that the ignition could be switched off during driving, stopping the airbags deploying in the case of a crash. The fault was attributed to over 40 deaths. Shockingly, GM knew about the problem for over a decade before taking action. Toyota's unintended acceleration. Anyone who's been stuck behind a slow Toyota driver knows that any acceleration experienced is probably unintentional. Back in 2009, it was discovered that a misplaced floor mat could cause the accelerator to become trapped open. In early 2010, Toyota realized some of the stuck accelerator issues hadn't been caused by misplaced floor mats and issued another recall to fix the throttle pedal's tendency to stick. Porsche 918 suspension fails. When you buy one of the world's most sought-after hypercars, you probably want to drive it quickly. Unfortunately, that could have been a bit dangerous if Porsche hadn't realized that control arms on the rear suspension were susceptible to braking under race conditions. A little later, Porsche had to replace fasteners on the front axle. Confidence inspiring. No escape from a 458. In America, legislation requires a catch in the boot or trunk that allows an individual trapped inside to get out. The Ferrari 458's latch didn't work, and so a recall was required. But a faulty front catch was the least of the 458's problems because, as you'll remember, it had a habit of randomly catching on fire. The problem was traced to an adhesive Ferrari used to stick the rear inner wheel arch liners. Sometimes the heat from the engine caused the liners to melt towards the engine, and in several cases, the adhesive caught on fire which quickly spread. Well over 1,000 458s were recalled and fixed using nuts and bolts instead of the flammable adhesive. Nervous passenger's dream ride. England is a pain in the ass for manufacturers. While most of the world drives on the right, we and a few others drive on the left. That means that cars made for our shores must be converted to right-hand drive. Peugeot Citroën did this by fitting a crossbar from the right-hand drive brake pedal across to the mechanism on the left. Unfortunately, they didn't cover it properly, so passengers could push on the braking bar through the carpet. Brakes too strong to no brakes at all. The Lancia Beta Montecarlo is another car that had a problem with its brakes. The car's issues was that the servo was too strong and would cause the front wheels to lock. So to fix the problem, Lancia simply removed the servo. You might not have been able to stop, but at least your wheels weren't locked up as you hit the car in front. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe and don't forget to check out the Car Throttle shop for loads of cool car-related merch. Suzuki Esteem. Esteem was the North American name given to the Suzuki Cultus or Baleno in other markets. Remember, esteem is a synonym for respect, admiration, recognition, and awe, which are all the exact opposite of what people will be thinking when they see it.